What if I told you that every smile you receive at work, every kindness from a politician on television, every seemingly selfless favor from someone close to you could be a carefully constructed mask? Kindness, that virtue we've celebrated since childhood, might be the most sophisticated tool of manipulation that exists. Machiavelli knew this 500 years ago, but we still prefer to believe in the fantasy. Florence, 1513. Niccolò Machiavelli, a political exile, secretly writes one of the most controversial works in human history, The Prince. It wasn't just a manual on governance, it was a cruel mirror of human nature, reflecting truths we prefer to ignore. Machiavelli didn't invent evil. He simply had the audacity to document what already existed, whispering in the corridors of power since the beginning of time. But here's what nobody tells you. Machiavelli wasn't teaching how to be cruel. He was revealing how the cruel already operated while you slept peacefully, believing the world was fair. He was the first political psychologist, the first to understand that behind every great leader, from Caesar to Churchill, from Gandhi to any modern CEO, there exists a mask. And that mask has a name: strategic kindness. Think with me for a moment. How many times have you been kind, not out of genuine goodness, but because you needed something? How many times did you smile when you wanted to scream, praise when you wanted to criticize, help when you wanted to run? Don't feel guilty. This doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you human. And it makes you someone who has, unconsciously, already applied Machiavelli's teachings. The difference is that most people do this intuitively, almost by accident. The true Machiavellians, those whom Machiavelli would call princes, do this consciously, purposefully, with surgical precision that borders on art. They've understood something you might still be discovering: that genuine kindness and strategic kindness are two completely different creatures, but they can wear exactly the same mask. I'll give you an example that will disturb you. Think of the last politician who convinced you. It doesn't matter if they're left or right, whether you agree or disagree with them now. Remember that moment when they said exactly what you wanted to hear. That phrase that seemed to come directly from your heart. They weren't reading your mind. They were applying Machiavelli. They had studied you, not you personally, but people like you. They knew which words to use, what tone to adopt, which emotions to awaken. Is this terrible? Or is it simply reality? Machiavelli would argue it's irrelevant. The question isn't whether it's good or bad, but whether it works. And it works because we, ordinary people, prefer to believe in the romantic version of politics, relationships, and life in general. We prefer to believe that people are good by nature, that intentions are pure, that the world operates on noble principles. But what if this very belief were our greatest vulnerability? What if, by refusing to see the masks, we were making ourselves easy prey for those who learned to wear them? I know this makes you uncomfortable. I know, because I was naive once too. I used to believe that people were transparent, that kindness was always genuine, that the world rewarded the good and punished the evil. And maybe you grew up like I did, hearing that being good was enough, that it was sufficient to be honest and kind, to succeed and be happy. Then life taught you differently, didn't it? You saw promotions being given to those who knew how to play politics, not to those who worked hardest. You saw relationships being built not on genuine love, but on mutual convenience. You saw leaders being elected not for competence, but for their ability to tell the most convincing story. And you started questioning yourself: am I doing something wrong? Am I too naive? Do I need to be more strategic? That unease you feel isn't paranoia, it's awakening. It's the moment when you begin to understand that Machiavelli wasn't a teacher of evil. He was a teacher of reality. And the reality is that we live in two worlds simultaneously. The world we publicly profess, full of noble values, and pure intentions, and the world we privately operate in, full of calculations, strategies, and masks. Think of the most kind person you know, the one everyone admires, who always has a gentle word, who seems genuinely concerned about others. Now answer me honestly, have you ever wondered if there's a calculation behind that kindness? I'm not saying there is, but have you ever wondered? And if the answer is no, that tells you something about yourself. It means you still live mostly in the first world, the world of appearances. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's admirable, but it's also dangerous, because while you operate with transparency, others might be operating with masks. And in a game where some players know all the rules and others don't even know they're playing, who do you think has the advantage? I'll tell you something Machiavelli knew. Genuine kindness still exists. It's real, it's powerful, it's transformative, but it's rare, and it's vulnerable. Genuine kindness has no defenses against strategic kindness because it can't recognize it. It's like a domesticated animal encountering a wild predator. It doesn't have the necessary instincts to protect itself. And here's the cruel irony. Sometimes, to protect genuine kindness in ourselves and others, we need to learn to recognize and, when necessary, use strategic kindness. We need to learn to wear masks, not to deceive, but to avoid being deceived. If this idea has already resonated with you, imagine what comes next. Subscribe to not miss this journey of discovery about the hidden games of human nature. Now let's get to what really matters. How to navigate this world of masks without losing our soul in the process. How to learn Machiavelli's lessons without becoming monsters. How to develop strategic intelligence while maintaining our humanity. The first necessary transformation is in how we see power. Machiavelli teaches us that power isn't necessarily corruption. Power is a tool. A knife can be used to wound or to prepare a meal. Power can be used to oppress or to liberate. The difference lies in the intention and consciousness of whoever wields it. Think of the great leaders in history whom you admire. Martin Luther King Jr. was a master of strategic kindness. He knew exactly when to be gentle and when to be firm, when to appeal to emotion and when to present rational arguments, when to use religion and when to use law. Gandhi, too. They weren't manipulators in the negative sense. They were conscious strategists, fighting for causes greater than themselves. This leads us to the second transformation, understanding the difference between manipulation and influence. Manipulation is when you use masks for your own benefit at the expense of others. Influence is when you use masks to create mutual benefit or for a greater good. The mask is the same. The intention is what differs. But here's the secret that few understand. You don't need to choose between being genuine and being strategic. You can be both. In fact, you already are both. You just hadn't realized it. Every time you carefully choose your words to avoid hurting someone you love, you're being strategic. Every time you smile to calm a tense situation, you're using a mask. Every time you adapt your behavior to the social context, you're applying Machiavellian principles. The question isn't whether we should use masks. We all use them. The question is, are we conscious of the masks we wear? Do we choose our masks or do they choose us? Do we use masks to hide or to express ourselves more effectively? I'll propose a mental exercise that will change your perspective. For one entire day, consciously observe every time you adapt your behavior to context. Notice how you speak differently with your boss, with your parents, with your friends, with strangers. Observe how your gestures change, how your tone of voice adjusts, how even your thoughts reorganize depending on who's in front of you. This isn't fake. This is human. This is social intelligence. This is essentially Machiavelli in action. The difference is that now you're consciously doing what you used to do on autopilot. And this consciousness gives you power, the power to choose your masks instead of being chosen by them. But there's a third transformation, perhaps the most important, learning to recognize when others are using masks, not to judge them or attack them, but to not be naive, to not confuse the performance with the person, to not make important decisions based on appearances. Here are some signs that Machiavelli would teach you to observe. Pay attention not to what people say, but to the pattern of what they do. Observe if there's consistency between public words and private actions. Notice if someone always tells you what you want to hear. This could be coincidence, or it could be calculation. Perceive if there's any hidden agenda in the kindnesses you receive. This doesn't mean becoming cynical or distrustful. It means becoming conscious. Conscious that we live in a complex world where human motivations are rarely simple, where kindness and self-interest can coexist, where masks are part of the social dance we all dance. And here's the beauty of it all. Once you accept this complexity, once you stop demanding that the world be simple and pure, you become more compassionate, not less. Because you understand that we're all trying to navigate the same turbulent waters, all using masks, because total vulnerability is impossible in a complex society. But there's an even deeper secret that few know, a truth that Machiavelli himself saved for the most attentive readers of his work. Here's the revelation that will change everything for you. Machiavelli never said you should abandon kindness. He said you should abandon naivety. There's a monumental difference between these two things, a difference that can transform not only how you see the world, but how you live in it. The true prince, according to Machiavelli, isn't the one who chooses between being feared or loved. It's the one who manages to be both when necessary. Not the one who abandons morality, but the one who understands that pure morality can be a luxury we can't always afford when lives and greater principles are at stake. Think of a mother protecting her child. She might use lies, manipulation, even violence if necessary. Does this make her a bad person? Or does it make her someone who understands that there are values higher than absolute honesty or unconditional gentleness? Machiavelli would argue that this mother is more moral than someone who lets their child be hurt by refusing to get their hands dirty. This is the true lesson of the prince. Not that we should be cruel, but that we should be effective. Not that we should lie, but that we should be strategic with the truth. Not that we should manipulate, but that we should understand how influence works so we're not manipulated by others. And here's the part that will shock you. The true Machiavellians, the most dangerous ones, are those who use the appearance of innocence and kindness to hide their intentions. They know you want to believe in people's goodness, so they give you exactly that. They perform innocence because they know you'll lower your guard. The antidote to this isn't cynicism, it's wisdom. It's the ability to admire and value genuine kindness when it appears, but also to recognize its imitations. It's learning to play the social game without losing sight of who you really are underneath all the masks. Because here's the final truth that Machiavelli whispers between the lines of his work. We all have a public face and a private face. We all wear masks. The question isn't whether we're going to use them, we will. The question is whether we'll consciously choose which masks to wear and when, or whether we'll let the masks control us. In the end, the mask of kindness isn't about abandoning kindness. It's about protecting it. It's about understanding that in a world where not everyone plays by the same rules, total innocence can be a form of complicity with evil. It's about learning that you can be strategic without being cruel, conscious without being cynical, powerful without being corrupt. Machiavelli offers you a choice. You can continue living in the fantasy that the world is fair and transparent and thus remain vulnerable to those who know it isn't. Or you can wake up to the complexity of human nature and learn to navigate its turbulent waters without drowning in them. The mask of kindness isn't the problem. The problem is not knowing when you're seeing a mask and when you're seeing the true face. The problem is not knowing that you yourself wear masks and not having control over them. But now you know. And knowing is power. The power to choose, the power to protect, the power to be truly good in a world that doesn't always reward goodness. True transformation happens when you stop being a victim of your own innocence and become a guardian of your own integrity. When you stop waiting for the world to be fair and start creating fairness where you can. When you understand that the greatest kindness sometimes requires the courage to wear masks, not to deceive, but to protect what truly matters. If this journey through the dark and luminous side of human nature has touched something in you, if these revelations have awakened questions you need to explore more deeply, don't let this transformation die here. Like this video so more people can discover these truths. Comment your own reflections, your experiences with masks, your discoveries about human nature, your questions about how to navigate this complex world. And subscribe to the channel because this is just the first layer of a much deeper journey through the psychology of power, the philosophy of human nature, the secrets that great thinkers discovered about how we really function. Share this video with someone you know is struggling to understand the complexities of human relationships, work, society. Someone who, like you, is ready to trade innocence for wisdom, naivety for consciousness. Because in the end, the greatest mask of all is pretending we don't need masks. And the greatest kindness is learning to use them not to hide ourselves, but to reveal ourselves more effectively to the world.